This is going to be a brief video, 6 games to talk about, but regardless, it is 6 games we do need to discuss. What is up everyone? Welcome back to Lex Alexis. Today we're going to talk about the 6 games that have currently been playing in round 23 of the Championship. Of course, tonight we've got Fulham and Sheffield United. I'm doing a watch along for that game tonight, my first one in quite a few months, so make sure you do check it out later on today. But what I thought I'd also be doing as well is talking about my views on the overall approach to this situation at the moment. What I think the EFL or the FA should do. Should there be a 2-week hiatus in terms of football based on the current situation? All of these opinions will be discussed in today's video. Now, the Football Prediction League will be presented in the community tab after Fulham play against Sheffield United, so the points can be updated. But if you guys like what you see, please give a video a like. It does tremendously help the channel. Please do hit that subscribe button if you've not done so. It does tremendously help the channel. And please share this video to as many people as you can. All of that really helps. But without any further ado, let's talk about the very few games that went on this weekend. So Barnsley and West Brom will start off with for Friday's game, and it was a bit of a disappointing spectacle. It ended as a 0-0 draw. Ishmael not being able to get a win against his former club. But if you look at chances, West Brom were the better side. Ghana had a really good chance in the first half where his shot came off the post. And what I will say in terms of chances, I think what Barnsley did really well was defending for their lives. Their backs had to be against the wall a little bit. Barnsley, I think, have well earned this point based on how good they were defending wise. But I am showing a real concern how bad they do look going forward. I think Barnsley had the lowest XG out of all the teams in the Championship with only 1 shot on target at home, only 3 shots at home. The conditions weren't great, it was foggy, so I can give them a bit of sympathy for that, but overall they should be doing more to give their crowd something. For West Brom's sake, it's a bit of a sting, this result, because now they've dropped down to 4 following that Blackburn have won this game. But what I will say, defensively they look pretty sound. They just need to improve in taking their chances. And then undoubtedly one of the results of the weekend, as we see Middlesbrough beat Bournemouth by 1-0. Bournemouth are falling apart and fast. And what I will say, it was a really encouraging performance by this Middlesbrough side. And we've been talking about teams like Forest being the team who could potentially sneak into the top 6. I think Middlesbrough should be in that equation too. I've really been impressed with the progress they've made with Chris Wilder coming in. And I think this was one of the first performances where I actually felt comfortable watching Middlesbrough perform. And the first time I've seen Middlesbrough look threatening. I remember when they drew 0-0 against Stoke, they didn't really look threatening. Their passages of play just weren't matching together. This time they looked organised, they looked prepared, and they looked threatening. Travers made some brilliant saves actually before Middlesbrough actually got the opening goal. Bournemouth had chances of their own as well. Solanke, I felt, really should have hit the target when he won a free header. I felt if he had that on target, if Bournemouth would be leading in this game, I think it would have been a different result. But the breakthrough came round when Sporar converted a penalty, which was conceded by Jadon Anthony on Isaiah Jones. Definitely a penalty for me. I think Jadon Anthony is very clumsy on Isaiah Jones there. But Sporar steps up. He scores to make it 1-0 to Middlesbrough. And they've well earned it. If you looked at the stats on shots on target, Middlesbrough had 7 shots on target to Bournemouth's 3. They had 19 shots in that game as well. This, for me, was Middlesbrough's best performance of the season so far. And there's been a couple of alright performances, but this is the first time where I felt Middlesbrough are fighting for this now. And that is really exciting for me to see. With Bournemouth, they really need to try and look at themselves and try and figure out what's going on. They just don't look as confident. They don't look as fluid. They are creating chances still. I'm not saying that they're struggling to create anything, but their confidence has just been shot. They really need to try and manage games better as well. Now, Blackburn are turning everyone on, aren't they? They've managed to win 4-0 against Birmingham, a 4 consecutive clean sheet, and they're 3rd in the table, and only 1 point behind 2nd place Bournemouth. I tell you what, a good result in Boxing Day could see Blackburn in the top 2 by the new year. I mean, if you looked at the squad on paper, you would have thinking, how on earth is this squad up there? But Remember, we had teams like Barnsley, you know, a squad on paper shouldn't really be up there in the table, but really overperforming, finding a style of play that suits them and shocking the whole world. And when you're playing with good form, good confidence, then you can beat anyone in this league. And it doesn't matter by what scoreline. Blackburn, on the other hand, beating Birmingham by 4-0, and I think they was deserved as well. If you looked at the stats, they were absolutely ruthless. They actually had less possession than Birmingham, but they've been playing a lot of this season without having a lot of the ball. They're just really, really good at using the ball and creating chances, to create 16 shots as well, 5 on target, and they really could have scored more as well. What I will say, I think Sarkic had a really shaky game in my opinion. John Buckley's goal could have been avoided as Sarkic didn't carelessly palm it away into his direction there. Rida Kadra's goal was a really, really nice goal. It was a brilliant through ball. Kadra getting to the ball before Sarkic. Maybe Sarkic should be a bit quicker off his line there, but that makes it 2-0. For the penalty, Sarkic concedes a penalty, and for me a stonewaller as well. Ben Brereton steps up to make it 3-0. 4-0 was a bit of a fortunate goal for Blackburn Rovers' part, but nevertheless, Birmingham couldn't clear their lines well enough, and Ben Brereton Diaz had an easy header to make it 4-0. And I'm really impressed with a lot of their squad. I think John Buckley deserves a lot of credit as well. I think he's been someone I've not really spoken about, but there's a lot of players in that squad who really stepped up. I would praise Niambe, how he worked that first goal as well. There's so many individual star-like performances I don't think get mentioned, because Ben Brereton Diaz gets a lot of the spotlight because he's the one scoring the goals. But that whole squad for me is looking really, really good together, and I'm really excited to see how it develops. With Birmingham, I don't even know where to begin with them, because they've been really inconsistent with their form. They've been conceding too many goals very, very recently. They need to hit a reset button and just try and get back this confidence that they had at the start of the season. And then a crucial win, I think, for Blackpool in considering about the bottom three, as they wake up a 3-1 victory over Peterborough. And when Peterborough got the first goal, I was very worried for Blackpool. It was a really nice goal actually, a brilliant through ball, Sergi Dembele bursting through with pace, the backline couldn't handle him, and that made it 1-0. If Peterborough had won that game, it would have closed the gap on Blackpool immediately, and it would have seen Peterborough outside of the bottom three as well. But fair play to them, as soon as they conceded, Blackpool went for it. They had 2 big chances before they actually equalised, only 16 minutes later. It was Keshi Anderson. But I think with that equaliser, if you see the whole build-up to the goal, it shows how Peterborough have really lacked any identity in terms of defending corners or defending any sort of set play. They win the ball back, try and boot it away hopelessly, but then it gets collected again, no one's marking Keshi Anderson in the return, and it makes it 1-1. And I think as soon as they conceded, I think their heads dropped, and that's a concerning sign for me. Sonny Carey scored in the 86th minute, and to be honest, a lot of that game was 1-1, so either team who would have scored next, I think, would have got it, but the disappointing part of it was that it was all Blackpool, really, to be honest. Carey scored, and then, of course, Jerry Yates scored the third one. I think Cornell should do better there. It's pretty poor goalkeeping on his part to let that goal go in. That makes it 3-1. Peterborough finally had a really good chance near the end of the game where Maxwell made an incredible save, but they should have done that a lot more when they conceded the equaliser goal and throughout the second half. They couldn't dictate the game at all, and that's a really concerning sign for me. There's just this lack of confidence with Peterborough away from home. With Blackpool, this I think is a very crucial win. I think they've now hit the 30-point mark for this win now. So at the halfway stage to get 30 points, it's a pretty good points tally for Blackpool. They now need to just try and hit that similar form in the second half of the season to get 60 points on your return to the Championship is a pretty good tally. And then a 5-goal thriller at Ashton Gate as Huddersfield are the team picking up the win. 3-2 they won. Now, I was a little bit worried when I didn't predict too many goals between these two sides in this game, because I did look at the previous games and we've had some cracking games in Ashton Gate between these two sides. I think the last one was a 5-3 victory over Bristol City, which was actually their last victory before they went on their huge home drought. But what I will say in this game, when Bristol City took the lead, I thought, okay, it's going to be same old. They're going to continue their strong home form again. Vyman managing to score the first goal. But minutes later, they conceded a penalty and Huddersfield really wanted to have a part in this game. Danny Ward stepped up, but it was a brilliant save by Daniel Bentley. So we're thinking, is this going to be a game where Huddersfield get a bit unlucky and they forcefully try to get something, but they can't quite get it? But we discover in the 41st minute, Dwayne Holmes getting the equalising goal. Poor defending of Bristol City's part, not even tracking Dwayne Holmes' run as he literally runs free through the gaps in the back line and scores past Bentley to make it 1-1. And similar with Sinani's goal, the large gaps that Bristol City had in their back line is very, very poor. Just the lack of closing people down. It's just disorganisation at the back, and that's going to be a really big problem for Bristol City if they don't address it soon. That made it 2-1, and it was game over when Danny Ward got the third one. A little bit more of a fortunate goal in that one, but it still counts. That made it 3-1. Andy Weimann scored a really nice goal in the 97th minute, but by that time it was too little too late. Huddersfield held on for the 3 points, and it's a crucial 3 points as well, because I think Huddersfield have been struggling with their form very recently. They're now back up into the top 10 of the table. They could be another team who could be up there, but for me, I just think their defence is just not quite strong enough, in my opinion, if they're going to compete up there. If they can improve their back line and take more of their chances, like they did in this game, and just score more frequently, then maybe they could be, but if I'm looking at the teams around them, I just got a bit more confidence in the teams like Middlesbrough and Forest, who have an identity, who build up from a really good, solid foundation and then take their chances. So it depends with Huddersfield. There could be a team who could surprise us, but with Bristol City, I think for me, it was one of those crazy games for me. You know, they didn't look too bad in some areas, but defensively, very poor. They definitely need to address that. And finally, the game in the City Ground, Nottingham Forest and Hull ended as a 2-1 home victory to Nottingham Forest. Now, Hull have a really good record against Nottingham Forest in the City Ground, actually, and they did take the lead, which I did expect. Not many people actually predicted Hull City to score in this game, but I did think so. Despite Nottingham Forest keeping this clean sheets, Hull have got a threat of their own as well. And it was a brilliant assist, by the way, to find Keane Lewis-Potter. Really long looping ball over the Forest back line. Keane Lewis-Potter latching onto it, beating Sambo in his near post to make it 1-0 to Hull City. And when Hull were winning at half-time, this was going to be interesting to see how Steve Cooper would change his team in the second half, and I gotta say, they really went for it in the second half. Lewis Grabban won a penalty. Do I think it was a penalty? I think it was a little bit harsh compared to the penalty we saw in Middlesbrough and Bournemouth. I can definitely understand why Hull were absolutely enraged by the decision going Nottingham Forest's way. Grabban stepped up and that made it 1-1. And then within 20 minutes later, Brennan Johnson does what he does best. He's been winning goals for Forest before, and he's done so again. And what I really like about Brennan Johnson is that sometimes, you know, when he receives the ball, it's not the cleanest of deliveries, but the technical ability to chest the ball, control the ball, and not lack any composure to still find a shot into the net past Baxter, that is some brilliant technique by the young lad, and that made it 2-1. And I think it was slightly deserved. It was actually a really even game when you looked at the possession, the shots on target. So I think Forest might have just slightly edged this one, but it was a very close game. And honestly, I don't think Hull actually looked too bad in this game, to be honest with you. So I do have hope that Hull can build up from this and it won't be hitting hard by this defeat. So it'll just be interesting to see how Hull respond in their next potential game. Right guys, so already we've talked through every single game that has happened in round 23. So before we end the video, I guess now the best thing to talk about is to think about what's going to happen at the EFL, and more importantly, what really should happen with these games and the safety of us human beings. So there has been talk of a 2-week circuit breaker. That means that, you know, football games, I think, could be suspended completely. It means they could revert back to playing behind closed doors again. Now, what I feel the best situation is, I mean, it's difficult really to have a logical explanation or a logical solution to this. Unfortunately, the Omicron variant is just spiraling really quickly. I know it from my family's sake. It is a very transmissible variant and very quick as well. And I think that's one of the things that's a little bit different with this variant compared to the other variants as well. But what to do about it? I mean, we've had a situation, you know, when we've had a couple of games, you know, being suspended. You know, I think about Rotherham last season when they had their games suspended over a period of time when they had a COVID outbreak in their squad. It did really ruin their season though. It did really affect them trying to survive in the Championship when they had all their fixtures congested in a really short period of time. I think when you stop it entirely, I think the congestion feels the same for everyone, depending how much of their squad players are going to be testing positive for COVID-19, of course. But is it fair, really? I mean, if you continue on, what's very likely going to happen is that we're going to continuously have half the games brought off. We had 19 EFL games cancelled due to COVID outbreaks. That's over half of the EFL games. You could argue, does it deny the inevitable? It might do, but I think if you continue playing now, and I think one thing that does need to happen, I think that more rigorous testing is needed for the players. I think they need to look after themselves as well. A lot of the COVID-19 outbreaks is on the football players rather than the staff, if that makes sense. So I do think they need to look after themselves a lot more, not to be so reckless. And, you know, we're not out of this yet. You know, this is a long-winded process. We're still talking about this now, and I think a lot of people thought that in 2021 we would have been talking about this ever again, but I think it's going to be an annual thing now, unfortunately. I think the best way around it, just continue in this way, but hopefully with more strict protocols in terms of FIFA, in how they test their players. Potentially, maybe more enthusiasm to get the vaccine. I'm not going to be one of those people that's going to force people to get vaccinated. I'm not going to be that guy. I received my booster jab yesterday, for instance. But, you know, what I will say, all of the games around the world have taken place, actually. No cancellations, and their vaccination rates have been a lot higher. So, it's a tricky one, really, to be honest, because vaccinations don't actually prevent you getting COVID. It just makes the effects a lot less. But it doesn't stop you getting it, and ultimately the problem is that too many of the players are getting it right now. So I definitely think players being less reckless, maybe more strict protocols as well in terms of how they should look after themselves in their daily lives, I think needs to be put in place as well. Keeping it going, I can definitely see it being branded as selfish in other businesses around the world, but a lot of these fans really want this escapism, and I can understand why they would want it to keep going. So it's a really difficult decision, but I'd really be interested to know your thoughts on it in the comments down below. So should I think that there should be a circuit breaker? It may help, but at the same time, it's very risky doing that as well with the congestion, with all the tournaments that are going round, you know, that are outside of the EFL. It's really going to be exhausting for players again. When we had this congestion, it was unbelievably painful and torturous for all these players playing all these games at least one time, trying to catch up to the season. So fingers crossed we don't have to go to those measures, but would it help? Maybe, but maybe not as well. It's really down to how the variant kind of dies out or increases its transmissible rate over the Christmas period. I think it's one you're going to have to play by ear. So before I end my video, this is what the table looks like before Fulham play Sheffield United tonight. So Fulham's still at the top of the table with Bournemouth in second, Blackburn in third, West Brom in fourth, QPR in fifth, and Stoke in sixth place. Now, in terms of a team is in danger, I mean, Peterborough and Barnsley, 23 games played, 19 points and 14 points respectively. It's not looking good for these teams. And Derby, they have 4 points, but if they win their game in hand, they can actually close the gap a little bit on Barnsley. So that will wrap it up for today's video. You can vote for your goal of the weekend, player of the weekend, and result of the weekend by voting on my polls on the community tab as well. If you guys want to get involved with that, make sure you do cast your vote. But I guess that'll have to wrap it up for today's video. It's been very brief, hasn't it? But thank you guys so much for watching. If you guys enjoyed the video, please do give the video a like. It does tremendously help the channel. Please do hit that subscribe button if you've not done so. We're trying to get to 900 subscribers as soon as we can. It'd be very appreciative if you do hit that red subscribe button. It does help the channel. And please share this channel to as many people as you can. It's how we grow together as a community. Also, guys, make sure you check me out later doing my watch along for Fulham and Sheffield United. But that would love for today's video. Thank you guys so much for watching. You guys are legendary if you saw the end of this video. And as always, I'll see you guys very, very soon. Take care.